Hot Cocoa Hearts by Susanne Nelson, Chapter 13. I woke up Saturday morning to a blinding brightness, and when I glanced at the window, I couldn't see the street because of the layer of ice and snow that had frozen to the glass overnight. I tried the light switch in my room. Nothing. The power was still out. After getting dressed, I hurried out of my room, my dread building with every step. Passing the open door to my parents' room, I peeked in. Dad was lying flat on his back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. His face told me everything I needed to know. "Dad," I whispered. He sighed. "The holly jolly house is gone. Your mom took a look a few minutes ago. The storm blew most of it away." My stomach dropped. I sat down beside him. "What are we gonna do?" I figured he'd have a plan. I felt even worse when I heard his barely perceptible nothing. The lines on his forehead deepened. "All the families who line up out there every year," he mumbled. "The kids that look forward to this each Christmas. I hate disappointing them." "I'm sure there are still some decorations up around town," I tried. "The storm wouldn't have destroyed all of them." His eyes flicked to me, but I could see he was making an effort not to move his neck too much for fear of the pain. "It was never about the decorations," he said. "It was about the magic of believing," he sighed. "The sheer fun of giving the gift of that to other people, of sharing it with them. Like your grandma and I used to share it with you." I bit my lip, feeling it threatening to tremble. I'd never seen Dad look so utterly defeated before. I felt responsible. Sure, I hadn't had anything to do with the Holly Jolly house getting blown away, but how many times in the past couple of years had I wished it would disappear? I'd gotten exactly what I'd wanted, so why did I feel so lousy? Could you please go ask your mom to make me another cup of coffee?" he asked, then sighed again. "It's not the same drinking it through a straw, but she won't let me try to sip it yet. I'm practically a hostage." I laughed a little at that, then nodded. As I turned toward the door, I glanced back at him. "I'm really sorry, Dad," I whispered. I didn't know I had any inkling of sentimentality left for the Holly Jolly house, but here I was, with tears threatening my eyes. There was magic in believing. I'd felt it as a child, with Grandma more than anyone else. Wanting to take away the Holly Jolly house from the town was like destroying a little bit of that magic. It was like taking away a part of Grandma all over again. Who would wish for that? I stopped dead on the stairs. A Scrooge, that's who. A Scrooge like me. On shaking legs, I took the stairs 2 at a time back up to my bedroom, then flung open my closet door. Flinging piles of dirty clothes this way and that, I dug through the mess at the bottom of my closet until my hand brushed against the velvet jewelry box. It was still at the bottom of one of my coat pockets, just as I had left it. I set it in my lap and carefully opened the lid, then caught my breath. The locket was smaller than I remembered it being, but still just as lovely. With shaking fingers, I opened it, and as soon as I did, a small slip of paper fluttered out. Picking it up, I read, "Emery, my sweet girl, you're upset with me for leaving, I know. But you must never lose faith. Each Christmas, in the lights, the singing, and the magic, look for me. I'll be there, with you always. I love you, Grandma." Tears trickled down my cheeks as I clutched the locket to my chest. The words settled over me, and suddenly I felt my heart softening. This was what I'd needed to hear. The promise from her that she'd never left at all. I wiped my eyes, slipped the necklace over my head, then ran downstairs. I flung open the front door and stepped onto the porch. Dad was right. The Holly Jolly house lay scattered across the mountainous drifts in the yard. "What are you doing with the door wide open?" Mom stuck her head outside, surveying the damage again. "What a mess. It's such a shame." She shook her head. "It doesn't matter anyway. The power's still out in town. I'm sure the holiday stroll will be canceled." "But what if it's not?" I asked. "Your dad can't put this place back together in time, and I don't know anybody else who will. She shrugged, then shivered. Now come inside before you freeze. I followed her in, telling her about Dad's request for coffee. But I took one last look at the wreck outside as I shut the door, and suddenly I knew what I needed to do. A strange giddiness filled me as I scrambled into the kitchen. Where's Alex? I asked, staring at the remains of 2 mostly eaten breakfasts on the table. He and his grandfather left right before you came downstairs, Mom said. I thought he'd said goodbye to you. I was already heading for the door, grabbing my coat and boots from the entryway as I went out. Gotta go, Mom, I hollered as I yanked the door open. Be back soon! I didn't wait for a response before I slammed the door shut and leapt off the porch, immediately sinking deep into the snow. They can't have gotten far, I thought as I made my way through the drifts, which were so deep sometimes it felt more like wading than walking. When I reached the sidewalk, I turned in the direction of their house and, after rounding the corner onto their street, I spotted them slowly moving through the drifts. Alex! Wait! I cried. He turned around, surprised and confused, and I doubled my pace, then laughed as I almost fell face first into the snow in my rush to reach them. I caught myself, but not before I was up to my armpits in freshly fallen powder. Need some help? Alex asked. I wanted to be irritated at the laughter I heard rippling his voice, but mainly I was grateful. Laugh it up, but I need help, I said. Lots of it. His smile widened. Tell me something I don't already know. He pulled me to my feet, and the feel of his hand on mine sent shivers through me. Thanks, I said, straightening. Then I grabbed him by the shoulders, and his eyebrows shot upward in surprise. I need you. You need me. Was it just me, or were his cheeks turning red? Was it from the cold? Yes, I need your help. I grabbed his hand and began dragging him in the direction of my house, waving to his grandfather as I went. Alex is coming with me, I called to Senor Perez over my shoulder. He'll be home later. Okay, Senor Perez waved back. Be careful. Where are we going? Alex asked, peering at me curiously. Wait a second. You look different. Weirdly cheerful. What's going on? I rolled my eyes. Isn't it obvious? I'm going to fix the Holly Jolly house, and you're going to help me. Alex stopped in the snow, his mouth falling open. But you hate that house. I hesitated, then giggled, surprising even myself with the light, airy sound. Not anymore. I can't let our yard stand empty if the holiday stroll happens tonight. I have to fix everything. My grandma would have wanted me to, and I want to make her proud again. I need to do this for her. For my dad. I looked into his chocolate eyes and smiled. And for me. I don't believe it. Alex shook his head, baffled. Are you de-Scrooged? I don't know, I admitted, bashfully. Maybe I am, I shrugged, and my smile widened. I guess Ebenezer wasn't the only one haunted by pesky Christmas spirits. I elbowed him. Alex grinned. I bet his weren't nearly as good-looking. Now you just sound arrogant, I teased. I was so glad to see him acting normal after the awkwardness I'd felt between us last night. Still, though, I wanted to make sure we were okay. About our talk yesterday. Alex waved the words away. We have more important things to worry about. A conflicted look crossed his face, and for a moment it seemed like he had more to say. In the end, though, he shook his head, seeming to decide against it. We better get going, I said slowly, unsure of what to make of his silence. It's already after 10, and we only have 6 hours until the stroll starts. If it starts, Alex warned. Hey, that's the talk of skeptics. I shot him a scolding glance. Remember? There's magic in believing. I smiled. And for once, I do. 3 hours later, I wondered when the magic would kick in. Tugging off my hat to wipe the perspiration off my forehead, I surveyed the headway we'd made. It wasn't much. Using our shovels, we'd dug out several buried reindeer and the candy cane trail that had once led to Santa's workshop. When our backs and arms had gotten too tired, we took breaks to scour the neighborhood, searching for the decorations that had blown away. I'd found 3 penguins, and Alex discovered one of the singing polar bears dangling in a tree. Still, The front yard looked bare compared to what it had only a day ago. "We're not even close to ready," I said, as Alex struggled to untangle a ball of knotted Christmas lights. "One step at a time." He glanced around, then gave me an encouraging smile. "We'll get there." "There you go with the never-ending optimism." I tossed a snowball half-heartedly in his direction. "We need more than optimism. We need a miracle." Just then, there was a deep rumbling from down the street, and I turned my head to see one of Fairview's power and light trucks rolling toward us. When it reached our house, the driver rolled down his window, shaking his head sadly at our front yard. "I hope the storm might have gone easy on this part of town, but no such luck, huh?" he said. "What a shame. My kids love your house. We stop here every year during the holiday stroll. It's one of our favorite traditions." "Really?" I said, surprised. I mean, I'd seen the people lining up to see our house each year, but a tradition? That was different. That meant that our house wasn't some oddity people came to stare at. It was part of the memories families in Fairview made each year. I felt a sudden rush of pride. "Well," I said firmly, "I'll see your family here tonight." The driver's brow furrowed. "Hate to say it, but there's not a chance we'll get all the town's power up by then." He rubbed his chin, thinking, "But if you can promise me your house will be ready, I'll see what I can do to get the power back to your street in time." I glanced at Alex and saw new determination dawning in his eyes, just as I was sure it was in mine. We grinned at each other, and then I turned back to the driver. "I promise, we'll be ready." The driver smiled. "Good. Nobody should miss out on the Holly Jolly House." He waved, calling out, "See you later," as he drove away. As soon as the truck turned the corner of our street, I swiveled on my heel and headed for the front door. I'd turned off my cell phone last night because the battery was critically low, but maybe, just maybe, I'd have enough juice left on the phone to send out some texts. "Hey, where are you going?" Alex asked. "We have serious work to do." "I know," I called out as I hurried through the door to find my phone. "That's why we need some serious reinforcements." Within a half hour of my text, Jez and about a dozen other friends of ours and Alex were spread across our front yard, setting up decorations. Each of them had brought decorations from their own houses to contribute. Lyra had rescued Hector the mouse from under someone's car, and Raphael brought a large ornate menorah that his parents let him borrow. Nissa had rallied the glee club, and they'd shown up in full force, pushing a very large, very expensive-looking golden sleigh in front of them. It was piled high with red and gold foil-wrapped fake presents. "This is amazing!" I cried. "We can put that front and center and harness the light-up reindeer to it." I grinned at her. "Thanks, Nissa." Nissa giggled. "I doubt my mom will even notice it's missing from our front porch." She then elbowed me, saying quietly, "I can't believe you're doing all this for your dad. You might actually make it off the naughty list this year, Em." I snorted. "It's not just for Dad. It's for everyone in Fairview." "Wow." She narrowed her eyes at me. "Sounds like something melted your icy heart. Or maybe somebody." She smiled knowingly. "You and Sawyer were the last to leave the party yesterday. Was it true love's kiss that did the trick?" "Nissa!" I hissed, blushing. Alex, who was standing a few feet away, hitching the reindeer to the sleigh, glanced up at hearing the question, and I felt his eyes on us. "Shh! Yes, we kissed. Sort of. But you don't need to announce it to everyone." "Why not?" she asked. "That's great." "Because I'm not ready," I stammered, feeling more flustered than ever. Suddenly, I didn't want to talk about that kiss in front of Alex. Not now. Not ever. Nissa blew out a breath. "That makes no sense. You got the guy you wanted. Why keep it a secret? Unless..." She studied my face until I had to drop my eyes. "He is the guy you want, right?" "Sure, maybe," I blurted, shaking my head. "I mean, I don't know." Nissa glanced up at the sky in exasperation. "If you don't know, then maybe you need to ask yourself what it is that's holding you back. And you better make up your mind soon, because there are hearts on the line here." "Hearts?" I repeated. Plural? What do you mean?" "Oh, nothing," she blurted. "Just a slip of the tongue. Never mind." She glanced around. looking everywhere but at me. "Where is Sawyer, anyway? I thought for sure he'd be here." I blushed again and shook my head, letting loose the sigh I'd been trying to hold in. "I don't know if he'll come." I'd texted Sawyer along with everyone else, but my phone had died before I'd gotten a response from him. I'd been hoping he would show, and I'd even put a sprig of mistletoe in my pocket just in case, thinking that if I had the chance, I might be able to make up for our botched kiss. But each time I glanced down the street, all I saw was an empty sidewalk. I shrugged. I guess I'd understand if he didn't come. I mean, I know how he feels about the holidays, and he always stands by what he believes. "It's 3 o'clock already," Nissa said, frowning. "Maybe he'll still turn up," I said. I laughed at Nissa's disgruntled look, and then a thought struck me. "Hey, did you have anything to do with the Secret Santa gifts I got from Sawyer? He told me someone helped him, and I thought maybe you—" "No," Nissa said, a little too quickly, dropping her eyes. "It wasn't me, sorry." She looked oddly sheepish. I felt a sudden rush of suspicion. "But you know who did, don't you?" Her brow furrowed uncertainly, and she glanced around, checking to see who might hear. "Maybe, but I can't tell you," she smiled apologetically. "I promised." She did know. "Oh, come on, Nissa," I pleaded. "You love gossip." She bit her lip and nodded. "I do. I really do, but this person, well, they're worried you wouldn't like knowing, that it would make things awkward." "What? What do you mean?" At that moment, a bunch of kids brushed by us, chattering, and Nissa clammed up. "Sorry, I'm going to help make some boughs for the porch," she said, then hurried away before I could say another word. I sighed in frustration, but decided to let it go for now, resolving to corner her after this was over and get an answer. I glanced around the yard. Slowly, it was coming together. The lights were restrung across the front of the house. We'd salvaged most of the animals and arranged them in scenes in the yard. Alex and I started building an igloo to take the place of Santa's workshop. Alex even had the great idea of sticking some of the lights inside of it, so that, if the power came back on, color-changing lights would make the igloo glow from the inside out. We worked side by side, and we didn't say much, but I felt Alex's eyes studying me more than once. My heart sped up. Had he heard me and Nissa talking? I was sure he wanted to say something about Sawyer, but each time I glanced in his direction, he looked away, and the moment passed. Finally, we pushed the last block into place, and stood back to survey our work. "It's even better than Santa's workshop," I said, and Alex grinned in agreement. "We make a good team," he said quietly. The igloo was big enough for at least 2 people to stand comfortably inside. We'd placed some of the penguins on the tiers of the snow blocks, and made a sign to hang over the entrance that read, "Santa's Ice Palace." Around the edge of the igloo ran an electric train that Glee Clubber Sam and his father had brought over. The light-up boxcars were all set to chug cheerily around the track once the electricity came on. If it came on. There was a tap on my shoulder, and I turned to see Jez beside me, nibbling on one of the cookies Mom had made to fortify us as we worked. "I think we're done," she said with a smile, and I nodded. "Everything looks terrific," I said to our friends. "Thank you guys for all your help. Mom heated up some hot apple cider if you want to go inside for some while we wait. And hopefully, in about 10 minutes, it'll be showtime." There were some claps and whoops from the kids scattered around the yard, and then Jez led them inside for cider. I glanced up at the sky, which was already purpling into dusk. "I'm gonna grab my camera and take some pictures of this for Dad," I said to Alex, "before I lose the light." I went to my room for my camera. As I took it off my desk, my eyes fell on my elf costume from the mall, sitting in a pile in the corner. I smiled as an idea struck me, and, in a moment of spontaneity, or lunacy, I wasn't sure which, I reached for it. When I came back outside, my heart stopped short at the sight of Sawyer standing in the yard with Alex. Both of them had their hands in their pockets and looked like they were straining for things to say. "Hey," I said. They glanced up together, and I felt a wave of heat sweep my face. As their eyes focused on me, I had the sense that both of them seemed to be asking the same silent question, but I didn't have a clue what it was. "What's with the elf get-up?" Sawyer said, his head tilting in confusion. "Oh, I..." My voice trailed off. I'm getting in touch with my holiday spirit." Sawyer's brow crinkled in confusion. "I thought you hated Christmas." I shrugged. "I had a change of heart," I said softly. "Huh," he muttered, casting another long glance at my elf ears. I waited to feel a shudder of embarrassment, but it never came. Instead, what I felt was the certainty of knowing that I'd have to tell him everything. The sooner the better. Alex had been right all along. The Emery that Sawyer had seen before had been trying so hard to be the sort of person he'd fall for. Now it was time to let every side of myself show, and let him decide whether he liked all of me or not. With pulse racing, I faced Sawyer. "I wasn't sure you got my text," I said. "Yeah, I got it," he said. "I was in the groove with some music stuff earlier, and stringing lights and ornaments would kill my muse. Can't let that happen. Nothing comes before my music," he grinned. "I figured you'd get that." "Oh. Uh-huh." I didn't get it, though. So many of my friends had dropped everything to help me today, but Sawyer couldn't find the time. My smile dimmed as my chest tightened in disappointment. "Anyway," he continued, "I walked over to see if you still wanted to go to the movies. The theater over in Boonton has power backup, and my mom can drive us over." "I'm going to grab some cider," Alex mumbled, excusing himself to head for the house. "See you later, Sawyer." I gave Alex a hesitant smile, trying to send him a silent thanks for giving Sawyer and me a minute alone, but he ducked his head and turned away. I focused back on Sawyer. The movies, right." I twisted my glove in my hand, my pulse hammering in my throat. Yesterday, I would have jumped at the chance to escape the holiday stroll. Yesterday, I would never have felt this kind of anticipation over a bunch of people gawking at our house. But a lot had happened since yesterday. "What if we hung out here?" I suggested. "At your house." His enthusiasm dipped a notch, and he scanned the yard with a look of mild disinterest. "I don't get it. You told me you weren't into any of this." "I know I did, but we just finished fixing up the Holly Jolly house, and any minute now the power might be coming back to our street." I sucked in a breath. "I want to stay here to see it light up. We've been working so hard." "We?" Sawyer repeated. "You and Alex?" I nodded. "And everyone else too, but Alex has been here since this morning. He's been great helping out." "I believe it." Sawyer shook his head, giving a short laugh. "He's like an elf himself, that guy. Nice enough, but that ho-ho-ho attitude gets on my nerves." I stiffened, and before I had time to think, I found myself saying, "I love the way Alex looks at things. I mean, when he talks to little kids about Christmas, their faces light up. He's got this enthusiasm that's totally infectious. It's... I grinned, shrugging. "Magic!" Sawyer raised his eyebrows in surprise, but I gulped and kept going. And if you think this attitude is so annoying, then what do you think about mine?" Sawyer scoffed. "You're in some guilt phase with your dad, that's all. It'll pass." He leaned forward. "I know you, Em." "I'm not sure you do," I said quietly. "I didn't think I was into Christmas. Not anymore, but I wasn't being honest with myself, and..." I bolstered myself for the next revelation. "I haven't been honest with you, either." I motioned to my elf costume. "This costume isn't just because of the Holly Jolly house. I've been wearing it for the last month, whenever I work at the North Pole Wonderland at the mall." His brow creased in confusion. "You mean the Santa photo booth?" I nodded. "I've been working there with my parents, but I didn't want you to know. I was embarrassed, but now I see how stupid that was. I had the chance to give all these kids something special, and I blew it." I sighed, clutching Grandma's locket for courage. "But this costume, these decorations, this season, I love it. I always have." I had just kind of tried to push it aside, to forget about it, until someone reminded me. Alex's face popped into my head, and my heart picked up its pace. Sawyer stared down at the snow for a long minute. "Okay," he said slowly. "So, what is it you really want, Em?" I smiled. "Tonight? I want to light up the Holly Jolly house with my dad. After that," I shrugged, laughing lightly. "Well, I guess that's as far as I've gotten." Sawyer nodded. "I could stay, but since we're being honest, I'd be lousy at handing out candy canes and giving good tidings, all that jazz." He smiled, and I was relieved to see understanding in his face. He seemed to realize in that moment, as I did, that he and I didn't have that much in common in the end. I looked into those amber eyes that I'd dreamed about for so long and, for the first time, saw them without a crush-induced haze. When I did that, they didn't seem nearly as irresistible as they once had. "Anyway, if you change your mind about the movies down the road, give me a call." Sawyer took a step toward the sidewalk and waved. "It's been fun getting to know you better." I recovered my senses long enough to give him a grateful smile. "You too," I waved. "See you later." I turned toward the house, feeling lighter from knowing I'd done the right thing with Sawyer. As my foot touched the first porch step, there was a blinding flash, and in an instant the Holly Jolly house was ablaze with thousands of colored lights and singing, dancing animals. Our power was back on. The rest of the neighborhood was still dark, but the Holly Jolly house illuminated everything. My front door flew open and everyone ran down the steps, clapping and hollering and dancing around the glimmering yard. Jez, Lyra, and Raphael grabbed baskets of candy canes to get ready for incoming holiday strollers. Nissa gathered a group of glee kids along the porch to sing carols. Alex's abuelo carried a tray of hot cocoa to the edge of our driveway to pass out mugs to the crowd. The last ones out the door were Mom and Dad, who was leaning gingerly on Mom for support. "Emery," Dad beamed, pulling me into a hug. "You did all this?" "I had a lot of help," I said. He shook his head. "I don't believe it." He glanced around, taking in the dancing animals and twinkling lights. The boyish grin he'd been missing the last week spread wide across his face. "Do you think Grandma would have liked it?" I whispered, pressing my face into his chest. "Oh, Em, she would have loved it." I felt my heart lift, and then I turned as Jez tapped my shoulder. "Guys," she said, "you've got to see this." She nodded toward the end of our street, where at least 100 people were walking with flashlights, heading for our house. The holiday stroll was happening after all. Leading the parade was the light and power driver from this morning, holding hands with his 2 children. He waved at me. "You kept your promise. I kept mine." "How did you do it?" I asked. He grinned. "Santa works his magic with flying reindeer. I work mine with a pair of pliers." "Merry Christmas," I cried, not caring if I sounded over-the-top jolly. Then I caught sight of Sophie, the little girl I'd made cry the afternoon I told her I wasn't a real elf. She was standing in line with her mom. I kneeled down in front of her, while her mom looked on warily. "Hey, Sophie," I said cheerfully. "Remember me? Emery Elf?" She looked doubtful for a second, then hesitantly nodded. I leaned toward her conspiratorially. "I wanted to tell you that your mom was right. I was undercover that day, protecting my identity. We have to disguise ourselves as ordinary humans every once in a while for the top-secret elf work we have to do. But I'm here to tell you firsthand we're real. And so is Santa. Can I trust you to keep our secret?" I winked, and her mouth dropped open in awe as she nodded. I gave her a thumbs up, then handed her a candy cane. "I'm so glad Santa and I can count on you." Sophie grinned at me, her eyes sparkling. I stood up to nod to her mom, who gave me a relieved smile. Then I scanned the yard again for Alex, wondering where he was in all the fray. "Hey, have you seen Alex?" I asked Nissa as the rest of the carolers warmed up. I figured he'd be on the hot cocoa crusade with Senor Perez by now. Her brow furrowed. "I thought you knew. He went home, while you were outside talking to Sawyer." "What?" My heart sank. "But he didn't even say goodbye." Nissa shrugged. I guess he figured you were too busy with Sawyer." "Not even close," I said absently, disappointment overshadowing the happiness I'd felt only a minute ago. "It turns out I was wrong about Sawyer. He's not for me." Nissa's jaw dropped, and I shook my head. "No, I'm good with it. I should have realized it before." Nissa tapped her finger against her chin thoughtfully. "I had you two pegged for happily ever after." "I think I fell for the idea of Sawyer. The real deal was different." I searched the yard again. "I can't believe Alex just left," I murmured. "It doesn't seem right without him here. I just don't get why." "I think I do," Nissa cut in. "I mean, he never fessed up to his feelings straight out, but it makes perfect sense." Her voice trailed off as she stared at the ground, debating. Then she'd nodded like she'd made up her mind. "I have to tell you something, Em. He's going to kill me, but..." She clenched her eyes shut and blurted, "Remember the mystery person who helped Sawyer with your gifts? It was Alex." She clapped a hand over her mouth. "Thank goodness it's finally out. I wanted to tell you so many times, but he made me swear not to." My stomach dropped to my toes as I stared at her, speechless. What had she just said? When I finally found my voice, I whispered, "You mean Alex picked out my secret Santa gifts?" She nodded. "Every single one. I heard him talking about it with Sawyer in the hallway at school one day. Sawyer said that if Alex hadn't been helping him, he wouldn't have had a clue what to get you. Alex realized that I'd heard everything, and he made me promise not to tell you. I wondered why Alex would want to help, but when I saw the way he was looking at you earlier today, it was so obvious." She gripped my hands with her mittened ones. "He likes you, Em. I think he really likes you." I can't believe it. The ground underneath my feet seemed to be surging, and I was reeling with it, stunned by what I'd heard. All this time I'd been so convinced that Sawyer understood me so well, better than anyone. All this time it had been Alex picking out the perfect gifts for me. Alex. Alex. "I had to tell you," Nissa went on, "because I think you might feel the same way." Realization struck, and I blushed crazily. "Oh, no," I started, flustered. "It's not like that." "Not yet," she said. "But did you ever think that maybe you wanted to be?" I opened my mouth to deny it, then found with astonishment that I couldn't. I smiled, in relief and excitement, as the emotions that had seemed so muddled in my head swiftly snapped into place. Why had it taken me so long to see what was right in front of my face? I didn't know, but all I cared about now was putting everything to rights. "I'm going to go find him," I declared to Nissa, and she beamed. I spun around and nearly slammed into Mom and Dad. "I see our resident photographer's falling down on the job," Dad said teasingly. Mom nodded. "How about a few pics for posterity?" "Actually, there's something I really need to do," I started, but then caved when Dad's face fell. "Okay, one for now, but then I promise to take more in a bit." I lifted my camera and snapped a picture of the Holly Jolly house in all its glittery glory. It was truly an inspiring sight. The most beautiful thing about it, though, wasn't the lights or the music, but the jubilant smiles on the faces of the dozens of people basking in its glow. After I showed Mom and Dad the photo, I hurriedly put my camera back in its case. "I have to go find Alex. I need to talk to him." Mom looked at me quizzically, then laughed. "Well, you don't need to search too hard. He's right behind you." My heart sprang to my throat as I turned. There he was, Alex, grinning at me and holding 2 steaming cups in his hand. I thought you left," I stammered. "You didn't say goodbye. I thought..." "Thought what?" he said, taking a step closer. I took a deep breath. "I thought you left because of Sawyer." He dropped his eyes to the ground. "I know that I can't do anything to change the way you feel about him. I didn't leave because of him." "You didn't?" I asked doubtfully. He shook his head adamantly, but I wasn't buying it for a second. "Okay, well, if you're sure," I said, faking nonchalance even as my heart raced, "then I need you to come with me." Before I lost my courage completely, I grabbed his arm and pulled him toward our igloo. He breezed by Nissa, who was standing beside Jez, giving her a whispered earful. I could only guess it was a detailed lowdown on what was happening with Alex and me, because when Jez glanced my direction, she gave me a wide-eyed look, followed by an encouraging thumbs up. I laughed. So much for Nissa keeping secrets. I guessed it was only a matter of minutes before the entire Fairview student body knew what was going on, but I didn't care. The only thing I cared about was that Alex was right here, right now, hopefully still liking me. "What are we doing in here?" he asked once we were inside the igloo. He set the cups on the ground and faced me, perplexed, his dark curls falling across his forehead. The soft red and green lights undulated against the snowy walls, casting colorful shadows across his face. Suddenly, I had a strong sense of déjà vu. This had happened before. But when? My heart stopped. In my dream. The dream where I'd been about to kiss Sawyer. Only the boy in my dream hadn't been Sawyer at all. He'd been Alex. I smiled, taking a step closer to him. "I have a special delivery for you," I said, reaching into my pocket. "From your Secret Santa." He blinked at me blankly. "Really? I didn't even know I had one." Summoning every ounce of courage I had, I pulled the sprig of mistletoe out of my pocket and hung it over our heads. Alex looked up, redness blooming furiously across his cheeks. What are you doing?" I laughed over my pounding pulse. Don't tell me Santa's biggest fan doesn't know what to do with mistletoe. Uh, I know what to do," he bumbled. "I just wasn't sure you wanted—" I didn't let him finish. I stood on my toes and kissed him. The kiss was breathtaking and sweet. Everything I'd always thought a first kiss should be. Everything that Sawyer's wasn't. I knew, with more certainty than ever before, that Alex was who I belonged with. It wasn't logical or perfect. Alex made me feel off balance and challenged. We'd probably end up fighting as much as we'd laughed, but that would only make it more exciting. My heart had known this all along. It had just taken my head a while to catch up. I pulled away to see Alex smiling at me, a bigger smile than I'd ever seen on him before, and that was saying something. I whispered into his ear, "It was you, all along, giving Sawyer the ideas for gifts." He nodded. "I've had a crush on you since the first time I saw you at school. You didn't even know I existed, but I kept hoping, and when you started working at the mall, I finally got up the courage to talk to you." He pulled me closer. "I wanted to tell you how I felt so many times, but I thought if I was ever going to have a real shot with you, you'd have to figure out everything on your own. And," he grinned, "my theory about you was right." I laid my head against his shoulder. "It's you who really gets me. I'm sorry I didn't see it before." He brushed my hair out of my eyes. "And I'm sorry I didn't get to give you any of the gifts in person. But now I do." He reached for the steaming cups on the ground and handed me one brimming with marshmallows. "Merry Christmas." "Thanks," I said, feeling a touch of confusion, but "you know I don't like hot chocolate." He shook his head. "This is what I went home for. I think I finally made some hot cocoa you will like." He nodded toward the cup. "Go ahead, try it." I took a tentative sip, then another, a longer one. I closed my eyes. The hot chocolate wasn't like any I'd ever tasted before. It was bittersweet and rich, with an unexpected bite. It was the perfect combination of sweet and spicy. Yum! I sipped again. "I love it." "Victory is mine at last," Alex cried, hugging me while I laughed. "I figured out what was missing. I added in some crushed Oaxacan chilies. Ordinary hot chocolate would never do for a girl as extraordinary as you." He grinned as I blushed. "Abuelo says we'll start selling it in the store next week." "But it needs a name," I said. "What are you going to call it?" "I have the perfect name for it." He leaned close and gave me another sweet, lingering kiss. "Hot Cocoa Kiss, of course."